and welcome to Let's Get Real. I'm Sue Eldridge and these are my fab friends.
I'm Ali Wilson.
I'm Chris Larkin.
I'm Preeti Kurian.
And today we're going to just have a chat about what it really means and what it's like to be a born-again, Holy Spirit-filled Christian in the workplace. Preeti, what do you think?
I think, when I got saved, I'm an engineer and my husband's an MBA in business. And one of the things that we kind of felt was as you become a Christian, the highest that you can aim for really is maybe being the pastor of a church or, anything in ministry. And always the talk was, how do you get into full-time ministry? And I'm really thankful and glad that today there is a new dialogue coming in, that there is value in working in what we consider secular, and that church is not restricted to 2 hours on Sunday.
So true.
Churches,
right.
We are the church, and we are the kingdom of God that goes into different places. And if we don't realize that we are called to workplace, then and we're called, we will actually segregate and separate ourselves, and we will not impact culture. So I think it's very important for Christians to really be in the workplace.
I think that's so
It
true.
is, and to be free to be themselves.
To be free, Yeah.
I mean, sadly, we're not often free to be ourselves. I mean,
No,
I was
not.
in the education and business sector, and there are certain things we can say and certain things we can do, but a lot more that we can't say and do.
That's right.
And I had to learn to accept that I'm in a different kingdom. There's a clash of kingdoms, there's a clash of cultures, and while we can be salt and light, Jesus said, you're in the world but not of it. And it's that culture clash, that conflict, where to value other people's differences, but also not to compromise my own beliefs.
That's right.
Issues around integrity and values and things like that. So that was my biggest challenge, and not to be schizophrenic. In that I'm one thing in the church and I'm another thing in work.
It's quite fun being schizophrenic.
Well, part of
Every
me
day
thinks
is different.
Half of me thinks that. Half of me... It's about being consistent.
I think also the thing is, we think we restrict God. We think God should be only in the church. And we don't understand that, like if you look at biblical Old Testament, Daniel was in government. Joseph, the vision was for him to impact government for Joseph.
That's right.
And David, he was a warrior, then he became a soldier to a king. So we have to understand that, we must impact culture, but not only that, God enables us to do it. So that means it's like we're not two personalities. We are one personality that impacts every sphere. So I think we need to get that. We need to probably keep hearing over and over again.
So
I don't know.
I mean, how arrogant of us, really, to think, that we're going to build these churches and fill them with incredibly godly people and just expect the world to come to us to hear. It's like, what? No, if we don't get out into the world, if we don't take us filled with Jesus and filled with his love into the world, then we're just going to be up on a hill watching it die. Really, I feel really strongly about that. And I love what you said. It's so true. Full-time ministry is your life, actually.
It is our life.
Wherever you are, it's
I
who we
know
are.
that my ministry is not called into the church. My ministry is in the world, and I know that. And I operate in the gifts of the Spirit. I have my own business, staff wellbeing company, and we run occupational health, HR, with integrity, and staff wellbeing, resilience coaching, counselling, CBT therapy, and basically putting people back together in the workplace. But God will often give me a word of knowledge. But because I work a lot in the education sector and social work, etc., I'm not allowed to say, God's just given me a word of knowledge. So I was talking to one lady and she's telling me this terrible story about her daughter who was bulimic and the massive impact. And it was horrendous, but I'm sat there and the Holy Spirit is saying to me, that's not why she's here. She's here because, and he told me, so she's talking away, and in the end I went, I'm really sorry, but this isn't why you're here, is it? I said, you're here because you've fallen in love with somebody else who's not your husband.
Wow.
And she went, how could you know that? Now, I can't say God told me because she's going to think I'm some kind of weirdo. I am, if we're being really honest. But anyway, so I just say, I'm just getting this impression as you're talking to me. This is all I can hear behind what you're saying, right? Now, in that, and this happens to me loads, but in that, I've led, well, at least 12, I don't want to overestimate, but so 12 is a conservative number, people to the Lord in a job where you're not allowed to witness. Because they've asked me.
Yeah. Because you've been who you are.
Because I just am who I am.
And you've oozed Jesus through you.
And operating in the gifts of the Spirit.
So true.
Yeah, giving people prophecy. They don't know it's prophecy.
Yeah.
But they come out going, something's alive in me. I was dead, but now I know what I'm going to do.
Or they like being around you because there's something about you that's drawing them to you.
So I have such issues because they'll go, people are only supposed to have 8 sessions and they've been here for 3 years.
You're either not doing your job
like,
very well or they really want to be with you.
They're like, no, please don't stop me. And I'm like, I've nothing else I can do with you. I don't matter because every time I come,
Wow.
I go away
That's
and
amazing.
I'm all right.
Yeah.
I just
That's
feel okay.
amazing.
And it's not because I build a culture of dependence, because that's not what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what is that? It's people to whom you are the aroma of life
so true.
rather than the stench of death.
It's
And so you
so
can still
true.
operate in the gifts of the Spirit.
Yeah, you can.
And I'm not, if you like, I don't believe that I'm dishonouring God by not going, God told me.
Gosh, no.
Because God once gave me this picture about what I did as a job. And it was a picture of this black dog that looked like a black Labrador, right? And God showed me that every time you touch somebody for the kingdom, there's a little spot of white that comes, a little spot. And we keep doing it, we keep doing it, we keep doing it, until it becomes a black dog with white spots.
Wow.
Right? And then one day it looks like a Dalmatian and it's a white dog with black spots.
Wow.
And that's the tipping point at which they come into the kingdom.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so don't think that everything we do doesn't count, because everything you do, and I believe these people that I've led to the Lord, I was just the one that put in the last white spot. Yeah, and people will have put things in.
Yeah.
God will have led them into so many encounters without them knowing it was him until you get to that tipping point.
Amazing.
And I just think evangelism isn't all about, you might not necessarily get the end result, but every single thing we do in impacting people
Like
for the
a seed.
kingdom
Like-
is part
it's sort of
of
like
the
a seed.
seed. It's
Yeah, so
part
you're
of
planting seeds.
Yeah, part of
so
winning
true.
a part of the kingdom of darkness for light
true.
until the impact is greater.
I love
So
that.
all my work is like I say, in secular sector, but I operate in the gifts of the Spirit all the time.
That's beautiful. I know I used to be a nurse, and so that was another area that you weren't allowed to overtly talk about God. But I remember many times sitting with people dying, you know, and I'd whisper, you know, Jesus, you know, and I'd be able to. But the last job I had, I was a business development manager, and my boss was a Christian. It was his company, and so I had permission, if you like, to share the gospel. But you know, I watched some people come in. I watched a guy come into the business, working part-time in the summer, and he would work with some of our other guys, and he would just spend the whole time preaching at them.
Yeah.
And he would preach at them, and I watched somebody that had been so open wither, you know, and back away, and I knew that was never what I would be doing, and I worked as I lived. You know, I was the same in my work situation as I was at home, as I was at church, and I really do believe, you know, if the Bible's true, then and we're filled with the Holy Spirit, and we're filled with His aroma, and we're filled with light, and we have life, and we carry freedom, then that is whatever we're doing across a business meeting, whatever we're doing, we're exuding that, and I remember many times I was given the opportunity to, because I just got to know people and trust them and build relationships with them, praying with them for a marriage. I remember having a business meeting and this guy telling me that his marriage was over and they'd separated. And he was like pouring out, and it was almost like a question mark, what are you going to do, Sue? And I said, I have nothing to say to you, but I do know, and I do believe in the power of prayer. And I said, would you mind? I mean, it was a big risk. This was a business meeting. He was one of our best customers. I said, would you mind if I just prayed for you? And I think he thought I was going to pray when I went away, but I just,
But you got your hands on him.
I didn't. I just prayed, and I just prayed that God would restore his marriage, because he said he really wanted it. I wouldn't have prayed it if he didn't want it, you know.
Yeah.
But and it was sort of quite a few months later. I was talking to him, and I just went, "How are things with your wife?" He went, it was as if he'd forgot. He went, "Oh, we're back together again, and everything's great." And I go, "Really? Wow," you know. And I had many opportunities, but that was because of just being who I was.
And being led by the Spirit.
That's
You know,
definitely.
Shoving the gospel down someone's throat, to
nobody
me, is
wants
never going to
that.
work.
Of
It's
course it's
just
not.
listening and moving out or moving back, you know, being led by the Spirit. That's what we're...
It's so
And
true.
treating people properly, because you'll find in education so many people are not treated properly.
Yeah.
And just loving them and treating with them the dignity and
Respect.
the respect that every single person
Well,
deserves.
don't you find what's interesting? The latest thing in education now is to have values. You go into a school or a college and the values are on the wall. And the first value is usually respect.
Yeah.
But you don't see very much of it.
No, you don't. You don't. It's true.
Yeah.
One of the things that I came across was, I mean, we are still in business. We're both, my husband and I, we have companies, but you know, when you're hiring Christians, like you were saying, Sue, you know, we're so enthusiastic when we go into workplace that we're going to see everybody saved, and we can get in their face. And another thing that I've had feedback in hiring Christians is we don't often make the best employees.
No.
Because so true.
Yeah, our priorities are so much higher in our things than, you know, this
thinking.
we're like, you know, and so we tend to go in. I think these are issues that we have to deal with, that we go in thinking we are better.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have respect. We don't, you know, and so we go in actually with a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
And employees find it difficult to have Christians, whereas we should be the ones who are excelling in the workplace.
That's right, we
you know.
should.
They should be queuing up.
They should be.
To employ
Yeah.
Christians. It's
they
so
should.
true.
You know, and so I know what you were speaking about integrity, Chris. What would you say? What advice would you say to people who are in employment or young people who, you know, come from the church, and we, you know, it's not a Hebrew mindset where we think that, you know, it's the Greek mindset where we think that work is below.
Ministry.
Spiritual things, but we have to realize that unless, I mean, we have to impact the world. So what advice would you say, Chris?
Well, I think not to be religious. I mean, I think that's the worst thing. To me, religion kills.
Yeah.
Too right.
But to love them and to go in wanting to do your job to the best of your ability. So
good.
while you're in that workplace, you are serving that
Serving.
employer.
Excellent.
And whatever
Serving
they
super.
want. You're not, yes, you're serving God behind that, but God has given you that job and he's put you under that employer.
Come on.
And
I
they are
love
the ones
that.
that you
Yeah,
serve. And if
come
they
on.
tell you to do something, you do it. And if there are laws and regulations that don't fit, you have to fit in
Yes,
with
you
those.
do.
So, like you were saying, Ali, we can't go in and overtly preach the gospel.
Yeah.
But we can preach the gospel by serving diligently.
Yes.
So
By being
good.
an example to others.
and with integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just doing what somebody
Because you're
asks you
taking
to
money.
do.
Yeah.
If you're taking money, you do what you're paid to do.
You have to justify the salary that they give you. You know?
It's exactly what.
Like-
Ladies, we could
we're
talk
getting
about this.
excited.
Come
Yeah.
on,
So
we could.
passionate.
Okay, so this needs a whole show, I think. Get real in the workplace.
Yeah,
in
get
fact,
real.
that's a whole new series, I think.
Get real in the
Let's
workplace,
get
yeah.
real in the workplace.
Yeah.
But
Please get real in the
please, whatever you do. Yeah, for all those employers out there, please get real in the workplace. But for now, we're going to have to take a break. And please come back because we've got a great guest. Well, in fact, we've got a couple of great guests, so don't go away. See you in a mo.
Hello and welcome to the Mum Show.
I think it's just so important for children to feel safe, so they have to have some boundaries in place.
You know, anybody can be the pastor at the church, anybody could lead that meeting, anybody could run that team. Nobody else can be the parent to my children.
It was a real releasing moment for me to just say, do you know what? I can take this so far, but God's got the rest.
And I want to be an actress when I grow up. Happy
Talk to people and like to cheer people up.
and crazy.
You know, our own experiences of being parented has a huge impact
on how we feel loved, and also how we then go on and make meaningful relationships.
And the Word is just full of like guidelines for right living.
And welcome back to Let's Get Real. I'm so excited to be joined by the lovely Irene. Bonjour, Irene. Comment ça va?
Quelle heure est-il?
Escargot?
Irene, was
Mange-tu?
that not? Ladies!
That was brilliant, French.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Parlez-vous anglais?
I felt extremely welcome.
Good. Parlez-vous anglais?
Un tout petit peu.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Because we would not have had much of a conversation. We really wouldn't. Irene, it's lovely, lovely to have you. And
Thank
you know
you.
what? I'm so glad that you're here because we've only met a few times, but I just knew you were real, you were fun, and you were a strong, powerful woman of God. So I thought, yep, she would fit really, really well with us Get Real people.
That was very polite, because I thought she was going to say, thought she'll do. Yeah, we're going to be desperate. Oh, yeah, she'll do. Sorry.
No, I'm awesome.
No.
Yeah, she is. Awesome.
You know who you are.
See that?
You are.
Yeah, she does.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited.
Good.
Well, we're all from different backgrounds, different experiences. We're friends. These two are from up north.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm from down south. And you're from
Where are you
many different places.
I live in London, so, you know, yeah.
No.
I understand.
The greatest city on earth.
But there are
No,
often
that's
cultural
Paris.
differences and,
no.
and cultural clashes. You came over from France 5 years ago.
I did.
And we've talked about, you know, the differences between French and English. So what was perhaps the most interesting or humorous experience you had when you came over?
I think the most hilarious bit for me that still is funny is understanding ready when you are.
Why?
Because for my French ears, when someone tells me ready when you are, that means I still have time to get ready. When actually I've understood that it means I'm in the car and I'm waiting for you and we're late. So that's a tricky one.
But we are actually saying, that does, yeah, you're right, that does say, you take your time because I'll be ready when you are.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, does
But
it?
it doesn't mean that.
doesn't.
It means I'm in the car and right now I'm starting to get angrier and angrier. So I've learned that.
But you came over. Why did you come over here from France?
I came to be part of a school of ministry at Eastgate called ESSL.
And you decided to stay?
They hired me at the end of it.
Oh, really? So what do you do?
Yeah. I'm now working full-time for the church. I work with Pete Carter. I'm his assistant, and I'm in charge of events at Eastgate and all the connection outside of Eastgate, which is how I met Sue.
Oh, wow. Great.
Fantastic. So tell us what you're passionate about.
I think I love life, and I love seeing people living well.
Yeah.
And I love seeing people being who they're supposed to be. So I find it really, really hard to interact with people who are not real, obviously. But I also understand that life kind of makes you sometimes, you have to conform to a model, so that's why you're not real. So what I love doing in life is just helping smash the box so that people can...
Which is why she's so good.
Yes.
How would you do that?
Well, I try being me.
Yeah.
And being the best version of myself. And I believe that it creates a space for people to just be free to be themselves. So if I'm in a bad mood, I would usually tell people I'm in a bad mood. It has nothing to do with you, but today I'm in a bad mood and we're going to just work out together. How did that
go
look
with the English?
Not really well.
No, I was just thinking
My first year doing events, I made a few people cry.
nice.
What, by telling them you were in a bad mood?
Which I'm not proud about, but it's better now. But I think just creating a space where you can be honest and say, yeah, I'm in pain today, or I had a horrible night, so that means that my interaction with you is going to be different, but it has nothing to do with you. That just gives the freedom to the person in front of me to just say, well, I'm sorry, and me too, or I had a fantastic day. And I'm happy to rejoice with people who rejoice, but I'm also happy to be honest.
Wow. Is it like that in France then? Is that very much the culture in France, or are you just quite unique in whatever in that?
I think even in France I'm a little unique, but we tend to say what we think more easily
we
than
don't.
you guys do, I have to confess.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's difficult when you're coming from another culture to read between the lines.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to analyze a bit more. You said you're in ministry, and now usually when you hear women in ministry, they're usually part of a couple and stuff like that. And I understand that you're a single woman in ministry. And how do you, you know, what are your challenges? What are the benefits? And what do you say? And speaking to people who are watching online, how would you bless them?
I think I'll start with the good sides of it. I have a lot of time. So I'm not pressurized by, you know, children or needed to be home at certain times and everything, which gives me a lot of opportunities. And I'm in an environment where I'm given a lot of opportunity, not just because I have time, but opportunities are given to me because of what I'm good at. And I don't have to refuse them because of like, oh my goodness, I have kids or husband. So that's quite cool. And that gives me a lot of space to explore. I think what I find challenging is that a lot of the world in which I work is still kind of, people expect you to be a couple. So, and if you're single, I think people kind of expect you to be a man. So it is a little, sometimes you just have to adapt to expectations and people maybe treating you a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, I am me, and I'm happy to be me.
We've got an amazing single woman in our church. She's 50 now, and she's Filipino. And she always has people trying to fix her up to find a husband. And she wants to be single. She's chosen to be single. But in her culture, that's almost unacceptable. Have you found that at all?
People have tried to fix me up. I'm happy to get married. But like, you know, with the right person.
Quite a few cameramen.
Wait, with the right person.
It's fine because we've brought Preeti in because she's actually our broker, and so
She's
far
a marriage
we've got
broker.
a husband out here for both our unmarried daughters.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm sure we can find you another one.
Let's work on it.
We'll work on it as soon as we've cut.
Yeah,
we'll be
we
straight
can
out
just,
there and we'll
just
sort
write
them
down
out.
the list and you know what
that's
how we work. You know, in
No
India.
problem.
All you've got to have is 2 donkeys.
Camels.
Oh, camels, sorry.
Please, yeah.
2
You don't have camels in India, do you?
No.
Grew up in Saudi Arabia.
2 camels and we're sorted.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just asking, sometimes you find that single people in the church are constantly, like you said, being encouraged to get married, or are constantly waiting to get married. And so you can't get on with your life.
Never living in the now.
You can't live in the now. And, you know, sometimes, so what do you, I mean, do you think this is true, or?
I've experienced it. So yeah, it is true. But I try, like I don't want to wait for my life to start until I have, like, you know, a husband or something. Or God has given me a lot of good qualities, so it would be silly of me to just wait until the one finds me for me to start existing. So I'm just serving my church and just serving God where I am and with what I'm at the moment. And when I get married, I'll still be awesome. And I'll still do wonderful things. They will be different, but at least I won't have the regrets of like, oh, like I wasted 10 years of my life waiting.
That's so good.
Fantastic.
I think that's a really important message for people. There's going to be people out there, I've met them, you know, that feel their lives on hold, especially women. I think it does seem more prominent for women, waiting for their husband to be able to then start their ministry. So I think what you've shared is going to really, really help and encourage and bring hope to people. So thank you, Irene. It's been a delight to have you.
Thank you.
And I wish it was longer, but we need to take a break and we'll be back soon. So thank you. Don't go away. See you later.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Krish Kandaya, and yes, that is Krish as in Krishna, but no, I'm not related to Hare Krishna. And while we're putting things straight, No, my dad has never run a corner shop. And no, I don't eat curry for breakfast. And no, I don't use cumin and chili powder instead of using deodorant. It drives me mad when people assume things about me. I resent that surprised expression on people's faces when I walk into a room looking foreign and then speak in English. And equally, it annoys me that people think just because I'm over 40, I'm going to prefer golf to 10-pin bowling or red wine to Coca-Cola. Just because I'm from Brighton doesn't mean I can't support Liverpool Football Club. Just because I'm a Christian does not mean I brainwash my children. Just because I teach theology doesn't mean I don't like a good party. Just because I've got 6 children doesn't mean I haven't got space for one more. And just because I own a van does not mean I drive inconsiderately. The point is, just because you know something about me does not mean you know everything about me. Being judged, labelled, stereotyped has a paradoxical effect. Those that think they know me don't know me at all. I'm even more of a stranger to them than they realise. So what if we've treated God in the same way? What if it is precisely because we think we know God that we don't know him at all? What if we've assumed he's close by when really he's very far away? What if we've assumed he's very far away when actually he's very close? The Bible is full of people who made mistakes along the same lines. Many of them even failed to recognise God when he turned up. And yet whenever God did turn up, unannounced, uninvited, unrecognised, something truly revolutionary was about to kick off. What if God is deliberately strange? What if it is in trying to understand the uncontainable God that our minds are brought into life? What if our minds are like a teacup and the knowledge of God is like the unending, unfathomable volume of water roaring over Niagara Falls? What if it is in welcoming this unexpected God that our lives take on a whole new meaning? What if it is a good thing that God is stranger?
Hello and welcome back to Let's Get Real. I'm very excited because we've got Krish Kandaya here with us.
Hey, nice to be here.
Said it!
You got it right.
Thank you. I'm very proud of myself. Welcome.
It's lovely to be
Welcome
here.
to Let's Get Real.
Great, well, it's lovely to be here. I'm so glad you didn't call me Krish Kardashian.
It was near.
It was
close.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
It was the 5th take.
So Chris,
25th.
Chris, when I heard you were coming, I Googled you.
Okay.
I did. So I saw your video, God is Stranger. And you start, it's on YouTube, if anyone's, I think you can watch it. And it's a promotion for your new book that's coming out. And you start off with saying this, okay? And I'm an Indian, so I'm just going to kind of pull you up on this here, okay? First, you say you don't have curry for breakfast. Come on, yeah?
Yeah, well...
Okay, please explain yourself here.
I would like to have curry for breakfast. You know, a little bit of dal, maybe some chapati, that would be a good breakfast for me. But I have a big family and not everyone's into curry. One of my children doesn't like rice.
How have you failed your nation? Come on.
I know. Well, we've kind of got... We're a Christian family, but there are certain things we allow there to be kind of religious freedom about. And that includes breakfast and even football teams. My son supports Arsenal.
Oh, well done. He's smart, isn't he?
I supporter for a father.
I know, but I mean, he's
be Jewish
he's
to
been
support
born
Arsenal.
again. he's oh, that's very good.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. And I understand you have only one PhD.
Just the one PhD.
Oh my God!
It took a long time.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
we'll still have you on the show.
I'm not really a doctor, so I didn't really meet a lot of the Asian expectations.
Did you?
So I'm a doctor of theology, not medicine, so it doesn't really count, I'm afraid.
And you've got a degree in missiology.
Yeah.
So
I've got that.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got that. Yeah. Since I started menopause, I can't find anything. I keep walking upstairs and going, "What did I come up here for?"
I don't think that's what it means, Alex.
I miss a lot of things.
We were missing a lot of things ourselves.
I'm glad we got the menopause out there straight away. I'm getting very comfortable. Thank you.
You would be.
Carry on. Keep hanging around because later on we're talking about sex. So
Brilliant.
feel
Excellent.
free to.
I've got a lot of kids. I must be doing something right.
Okay, so can you explain to us what missiology means?
Missiology is simply the study of mission. How does
Okay.
the church go about doing all that God's called us to do in the world?
Okay.
And I wanted to study it because I've experienced kind of the wrong end of mission.
Okay.
So my wife and I were missionaries in Albania, and we were there just after kind of communism fell, and missionaries came into the country, And there were some amazing things going on, but there was also a lot of division. So people planted, like there were 11 Baptist churches in one town.
Okay.
And you think, why did we need to plant 11? Why don't we just plant one and all get along, you know? So there were some bad experiences and I wanted to learn how to do it better.
So where do you study missiology?
So a lot of theological colleges will do them. A lot more of them are in the States than in the UK. But I did a master's in Birmingham, actually.
Did you? Well, who knew?
Who knew? And
Do you know this is such an educational programme? I didn't
I have to ask you this. I mean, it's a theological question.
Oh, okay.
It's a very deep question. Did you know that Paul's father was crucified? You know, when Jesus was crucified, there were three. That Paul's father was one of them. I mean, I'm checking your theology degree.
No, really? I've never heard that. Tell me more.
Romans 6:6. My old man was crucified with Christ.
Oh, yeah. Where's the percussion?
I've been wanting to say this for years.
I'm glad you got it.
I never found the right guinea pig.
I had to find the right theologian, you know, like I had to. So
Just thank you.
Brilliant. Good gag. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess your new approach to mission is your organisation that you founded called Home for Good.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
So Home for Good's a charity we founded about 3.5 years ago. We're trying to inspire people, particularly Christians, to think about fostering and adoption as part of their service to God. For some reason, we've kind of skipped a generation. Adoption used to be more normal in the church than it is now, and now it's not really kind of talked about. And weirdly, people don't think of it as part of their service to God. They don't think of it as part of the mission of the church. It's just something you do if you're interested, or something that you do if your personal circumstances lead to that. So we're trying to say, no, this is right core to the heart of God. You know, when God reviews the church, you know, he gives a little verse in James chapter 1, verse 27, maybe you know it, where it says, true religion that God our Father accepts as pure and blameless is, well, for a lot of churches, it seems to be singing and Bible studies, and I think those are important.
No, it's so true.
But when God says what he's looking for in worship, he says it's to care for the widow and the orphan. And so I'd love that to be a bit of a test. Don't tell me how big your church is, or how many CDs you've sold, or how many people download your videos, your sermons. Tell me how you're caring for the widow and the orphan. And that's the test of whether your church is involved in mission or not, I'd say.
But wouldn't a lot of Christians say, well, I give to a charity in Africa that looks after orphans, so I've done my bit? What would you say to that?
I get that. And it's important that we support the global church. I've been astounded by Christians in other parts of the world who are adopting and fostering in their own countries. So I visited Ukraine. I met lots of families that adopted 10 children out of an orphanage. Wow. Not just one family that did 10, lots of families that did 10, because they wanted to close down the orphanages. But imagine when they were walking down the road in this parable of the Good Samaritan. Do you remember the guy that walked past? Well, he could have said, well, you know, I send money regularly to Africa, you know, I pray for people, but there was someone in need in front of them. And chucking money halfway around the world isn't an excuse for not caring for people on our doorstep. People often say charity begins at home. I take that very literally. I think our homes are supposed to be places where we offer the grace and charity and compassion of God. So it's not for everybody, but I wouldn't say sending money somewhere else is an excuse for not doing something yourself.
Wow.
Well, my husband and I, we actually tried to foster about 7 years ago. We signed up to an organisation, you know, local authority organisation. We went on a 3-month training course. Wow. We made it clear, there's so many red tape.
Yes.
We made it clear we're Christians. We made it clear our lifestyle. I travelled in ministry, so often I'd be away for chunks of time. It was all scrutinised in great detail, all the role play. It was one of the most challenging things we've been through. Yeah. But at the end of 3 months, despite all that information they had and the cost of that, they said, oh, well, your wife would have to be home every night to bathe the children and put them to bed because we can't let you, the man, put the child to bed, which implies a lot of things.
Yeah, it does.
But certainly the implication was that there was something about my husband that might abuse the children. Well, first of all, women can abuse as much as men. But secondly, what a waste of time and resources, and what kind of value system do we have that makes that assumption?
Sure. Well, Chris, I'm really sorry you had that experience, and I guess part of that assessment process is is quite painful, it's quite invasive, but it's there for a good reason, isn't it? We know that children in care have had something terrible happen to them. 70% of kids in care have experienced neglect or physical or sexual violence against them. And so the state has got a responsibility to make sure that whoever they place these children with are safe. And the state doesn't really know us. I mean, it knows a bit about our taxes and, you know, whether we've been to school or not, but it doesn't know us very well. So that process is quite deep and invasive for a good reason. I don't think the system always gets it right. I think sometimes social workers don't understand some things about the church, and it's why Home for Good does a lot of training to help social workers understand how churches work, you know, the language that we use. Sometimes we use pretty weird language. When someone says to a social worker that they want to be a foster parent because God told them to be a foster parent, they kind of look at you like you're from another planet. Are you hearing voices?
Sure.
So we kind of help both ends. We help the church think about the process, and we help the local authorities assess well. I'm really sorry you had that experience. Sometimes in the system there are these funny little things. So there was this perception, wasn't there, that because men statistically, sadly, are often involved in sexual violence and abuse of children, sadly at the moment more men do that than women. That's probably why that idea came in. But we live in a culture now that says same-sex couples can adopt and foster. So I don't know how they would cope with that situation. Which parent has to be home every night? So I imagine even in the last 7 years things have changed, hopefully for the better.
Could I just say, I used to run a behaviour unit, and so we had a lot of children that were fostered. And some of those foster families, I wouldn't have let look after my guinea pigs. They were not fit to look after damaged children.
Some do it just for the money, don't they?
They were doing it for the money.
Yeah.
And you know, and they got through the process, and we looked at going through the process and were told at that particular time that we were Christians and they were...
It's quite anti-Christian.
Very anti-Christian.
I mean, Krish, that's a couple of people in our church, a couple fostered some time ago. And when they used to bring the child for a Sunday service, there was objection, you know, and sometimes people do want to make a difference, and I really honor what you do, and
really.
even just going through your bio and all the details of what you've done, I really honor it. But there's also a fact sometimes it feels like it's slightly anti-Christian, and you might get yourself into trouble just starting the process. So I mean,
So let me help with that. So we've met hundreds, if not thousands, of Christians that are fostering and adopting in the UK, and so the system isn't biased against us so that no one can do it. You know, we're living proof. You know, we're clearly Christian, 3 birth kids, 4 looked after children, big household, lots of babies coming through on a regular basis because they come and get adopted or reunited with parents. So it is okay, it's happening. Now, in the same way that when I was a boy growing up, I remember some of the bus drivers that used to take me to school were sometimes racist. Sometimes they used really derogatory language, they put on a funny accent, they called me funny names.
A bit like I was doing earlier.
No, not at all like you. Not at all like you. And I could have said, well, that's it then. The whole, you know, transport system is not for me because I'm a brown person.
That is true.
Okay? But actually, the system isn't against us. Maybe some individuals sometimes are.
Sure.
You know, I do a lot of training with social workers. If there's 100 social workers in the room, 80 of them will be fine. In fact, lots of Christians are social workers. Because it's one of the caring professions, isn't it? Like you meet lots of Christian doctors and teachers. You meet lots of Christian social workers. People want to make a difference. 10 of those 100 might be a little bit worried about us. Because they've read weird things about us in the press. There's always those bad news stories about the church.
Some of them are true a bit.
And sometimes they are. That's right. And then maybe 10 would have a serious problem with Christians. And that's where Home for Good can help. If you meet a social worker that has no idea or is worried or is even angry because you're a Christian, then we can help.
So
because actually the law protects you. There are certain things, there's Equalities Commission. And there are protected categories. You cannot be discriminated against as a Christian, or as a person of colour, or as a woman or a man, or because of your sexuality. So your faith has legal protections around it.
But what about these stories in the press lately about, you know, the bakers that refuse to bake the... I mean, there are lots of stories in the press opposite to that.
Yes, and that's why there was a legal battle, wasn't there? So it wasn't okay.
But they didn't win that case.
They lost that one, you're right. So one of the challenges come when different equalities seem to rub against each other.
Sure.
Someone said to me the other day, ironically, some equalities are more equal than others.
Yeah.
Okay, does that follow?
It feels
Yes.
So when you've got, in that baker's case, a sexuality equality meeting up against a religious freedom equality, that landed a certain way. Okay. Now that isn't the case on every situation, and that, you know, they appealed, and there's grounds, I think, for even more to be said on that.
Wow.
But I was at a meeting the other week at the civil service. The civil service has decided it wants to be outstanding in the way that it includes people of different faiths in the civil service. They've started a programme to change, because they're recognising things aren't all that they could be.
Sure.
There's this concept that people want to be able to bring their whole selves to work. You don't have to turn off your faith in order to work in an office. That's the way that we want things to be.
Sure.
So, you know, it's a work in progress. There's things about our culture that are not right. I say to the church, let's get in there. Let's try and make a difference. Not all of us will get through. It's not going to be something because of us. Sometimes the system's wrong.
Yeah.
But if enough of us come through, we can make a difference to these children.
So your book, as in God is Stranger, right, okay?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's such a misconception about God, and that has something to do
Yes.
with why people are quite anti-God? And even in Christian circles, that sometimes we try and project God to be the best version of ourselves that we could possibly be.
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe we're not supposed to fully understand God.
Brilliant.
What do
Really.
you think
Oh,
about
lots of
that?
questions here, Alison. I would say sometimes we make God to be the kind of God that we want him to be.
Yeah.
So whenever we go to war, whenever any country goes to war, guess whose side God is on?
Yeah.
He's always on our side.
He's always on our side, yeah.
Definitely.
And so there's this sense of a scary way in which we turn God into an idol. He becomes a mascot for whatever we want. You know, when I went to school and you took an exam, you were allowed to take a teddy bear or some kind of mascot with you to make you feel better. And to be honest, sometimes we treat God like that, don't we? He's going to be on our side. You know, in America, he's a Republican. In Britain, he's probably conservative. You know, he suits whatever I want him to be. You know, he's pro-gun control in America and he's anti-gun control over here. And you know, it's bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
So I wanted in this book to say, look, let's be careful when we think we've understood God, that we haven't turned God into a ventriloquist dummy, that we just told him to say everything that we want him to say. I want to look at the bits of the Bible that lots of people avoid.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I got
what? Tell us.
Well, I remember when I first got my first ever Bible. It was given to me by Auntie Sue. Okay, she wasn't really an auntie, but I'm
she
Indian.
was lovely.
Yeah,
And
everybody's
everyone's my auntie.
Everybody's
right?
your aunties now.
Yeah, my aunties, why not? And so she gave me this Bible. It's a lovely little red Bible, red around the outside, you know, so she could probably tell which bits of the Bible I'd been reading, or how much of the red dye was still there or not. She also gave me a highlighter pen.
Okay.
Now, what were you supposed to do with the highlighter pen? You were supposed to highlight the bits that God got right in the Bible, weren't you? I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Oh, yeah, I have that. That's a good bit. You know, I know the plans I have for you. Ooh, plans to prosper. Yes, I have a bit of that. But I wanted to look at the unhighlighted bits, the awkward bits, the
bit
difficult
where
bits.
God turned Lot's wife into a pillar of salt.
For
How many
example?
times have I prayed that and nothing happened?
About somebody else.
Not me, about somebody else.
So I thought if you look at the difficult bits, maybe those bits where God is disagreeing with the way I want the world to be, that might be where I'm meeting the real God, rather than just a projection of him. And so it was by tracking some of those themes that I came to quite an exciting discovery.
Wow.
Which was?
Well, I looked at every time that God turned up as a stranger. So you know he did that to Abraham?
Yes, he
just
did.
before that
Yeah,
bit
he
you
did.
mentioned. You know, 3 strangers turn up at Abraham's tent.
Yeah.
Abraham welcomes them in. And he does an amazing thing. He kills a whole cow to feed 3 people. Wow. Right? I mean, my mum likes
Sounds
to
all
cook.
right to me.
But a whole cow for 3 people, you know, he goes to town. And the idea was...
Could I just interrupt that? You know that you can't just cut a bit off a cow.
Yeah.
When it's still alive, don't you?
Just take a leg.
Okay, you can't just take one of its legs off. You do know that, don't you?
Kill a smaller object.
All right, okay. So let's take a leg. All right, okay, I get you now. Okay.
I don't dispute you have to kill
I
it.
just had to know, you know, in India ethnicity? I didn't know if this was one of the things.
Oh, the holy cow thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
I'm
it's
just
not that bit. So he treats these visitors as if they were royalty.
Yeah.
And then when he finds out that he's been serving God, he doesn't have to be ashamed.
Yeah.
Because he's treated strangers as if they were God himself.
Yeah.
Now, track through to the New Testament. Does it remind you when Jesus said, I was a stranger, I was hungry, I was thirsty, and whatever you did for the least of these people, you did for me.
Yeah.
So I've discovered, and I hadn't seen it before, that hospitality towards those that are marginalised, those that are poor, those that are needy, that is one of the easiest, clearest ways that we grow in intimacy with God. I found that really challenging.
That's
beautiful. It kind of blew my mind.
I'm feeling very, very challenged right now. Stop it.
Okay, it's over.
No, don't.
Well, you're making me feel welcome, so you're good at hospitality.
That's great.
Wow.
That's amazing.
No, I mean, Krish, I think that's because I think sometimes the church can be very secular, or we think God looks like the way we do in the mirror.
Yes.
You know, and and sometimes, I mean, I know that a lot of people think that Jesus is a white guy.
Yeah.
You know, and so and even in India, they think that it's a Western religion, Christianity, and it isn't. You know, I like in the book of Job, it says, "Behold, God is great, and we don't really know Him."
Yeah.
Does knowing Him, like you know, you said about you going through the scriptures, does knowing Him increase our relationship with Him? Does it make it better? What I mean, do you think it's like most of us don't? I feel we lack curiosity.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you know, we just accept things we're hearing from there and there. So is curiosity important in a relationship with God? What
Definitely.
do you think?
It's true in any relationship, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Once
is.
you start being interested and finding out more about the other person, something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And so how much more is that true for God?
Yeah.
I mean, for most of us, you can remember the early days when you became a Christian, there was that kind of rush of enthusiasm. I read the Bible, every page, highlighted as much of it as I could. You know, I wanted more, but you kind of reach a point where you go, well, I've got it now. I'm kind of just, you know, cruising along, I've plateaued. But you think, hang on, you know, think about the God that we're talking about. How much more there is to know about Him than we know already.
Yeah.
In fact, Paul would say he's only just started to scratch the surface. You know, I've not already achieved this. I strain forward to grab the prize for which Christ caught hold of me. Or he says in Corinthians, you know, now we see but through a glass darkly, then we will see Him face to face. So I find that really exciting.
Yeah.
It means that I've got so much more to discover about God than where I've come from.
So good.
And, you know, however long you've been a Christian, however much you've studied, however much times you've read the Bible, there's more to know about God than you know already. So we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't plateau.
Yeah.
We should feed that curiosity.
So how do you keep the relationship alive? I mean, with the Lord. I mean, because how would you do it? Because you've written the book.
I'm working on it. You know, I think a couple of things. I think curiosity is really important. One way that you can really help your curiosity is to study the Bible with children. Okay, I love bedtime Bible with my kids.
So good.
I hate it when they grow out of it. You know, my 15-year-old's not sure this is still a good idea, but you know, my 9-year-old is up for it. And they ask the best questions. They ask the awkward questions, don't they? They don't care about your theology or your denomination. You know, it says you should give everything you've got to the poor. Dad, we don't really do that. And I'm coming up with, well, mortgage, and you know, it was different back then, and they don't let you get away with it.
No,
So study the Bible with children is a great way. If you haven't got children, borrow someone's. You know, grandchildren, fostering, and adoption.
Did you
all
see
of
the
that.
way that it looked at you when it said grandchildren?
I'm already feeling convicted, Ali. It's all right.
I saw the way it looked at you then.
No, but that's
So I
really
think that is one way. But
Granny
I think the other way is this hospitality. If we began to see other people, wherever they're from, whatever their background, as an opportunity to serve God.
so good.
You know, just walking down the street, just being in the office, just, you know, talking to people around you. If you saw them as another opportunity to serve God,
love,
the amount of opportunities that come up, it's incredible.
It is.
It's so
You just
good.
have a different posture to life. I think it could be a really
Wow,
powerful
that's
way forward.
amazing. That's amazing. And I don't want this to finish, but I cannot let it finish without asking you, because I know you've got a real passion for books, and you want to almost share that passion with the world. Tell us how you're doing that.
Well, actually, there's a new TV show on this very channel.
Wow. What's it called, Chris?
It's called Books for Life.
Books for life, viewers.
Well, I discovered something. I went to visit lots of Christian leaders that I really respected.
Okay.
And all of them were readers. You know, all of them would say that reading great Christian books have really helped them in their spiritual journey. True. And I thought, well, you know, how can I expect to be anything like them if I'm not willing to have the same commitment?
Okay.
And if you think about it, through the centuries, we believe that God has been giving gifts to his church. And one of the gifts is teacher, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I don't have to come at the Bible and think, you know, I'm the first person ever to have read this passage. I can stand on the shoulders of giants, can't I? I can hear how other people have understood Scripture.
Yeah, that's very
or
true.
how other people have lived life in really difficult circumstances and yet proved God to be faithful.
Yeah.
I want to learn from them. And so it's like that curiosity, isn't it? I can't get enough of God. I want more of him.
Come on.
And God says we're supposed to love him with all our heart, soul, and mind. So there's nothing unspiritual about giving yourself to study.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes churches get into these little ghettos where, you know, we're a Bible church, we do the word. You know, we're a spirit church, we do worship. I think it's both,
Of course
isn't
it is.
Spirit
It's
and
dangerous with one without the other.
Definitely.
So I say, let's get reading. And, you know, we've got a little website where people can find out more. And I've interviewed some fantastic people. We interviewed Matt Redman, Tom Wright, Rachel Gardner, Philip Yancey. All of them have told us about the books that have changed their life.
Come on.
And they're not their own books. It's not like, hey, Tom Wright, this book changed my life because I wrote it. No, these are other people's books that have changed my life, and maybe they can change ours too.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Krish, thank you so much for being with us.
pleasure.
You know, all the things that Krish has talked about, those details are going to be on the screen. Don't miss it. And thank you so much for being with us. And we'll see you again next time. Bye.